So, continuing to explore logical fallacies, I want to give everybody sort of an explanation of what each of these looks like in practice. For the slippery slope fallacy, basically what we're saying is that if something happens, if A happens, if there's an occurrence, then eventually Z will happen. And so this is like saying necessarily if I take a step off the top of this hill onto a slope, I will fall to the bottom. That's the idea of the slippery slope. You're at the top, there is a bottom. This slope is the necessary occurrence if A happens. If you walk off the edge, you will slide down to the bottom. The fallacy is that since the slope is slippery, there's no way to stop yourself from getting there. But in logic and argument, there may be so many ways, so many choices or decisions that you can make before you reach the bottom to stop it from happening. So the example here on the page now is one that I used to hear a lot, especially during the debates about making same-sex marriage legal in the United States. And that was, if we make same-sex marriage legal, then it is impossible to exclude virtually any relationship between two or more partners of either sex, even non-human partners. So the slippery slope argument here was, if we allow same-sex marriage, then that's the top, and we take that step off, and then we slide all the way down to people marrying their horse, or people marrying their cat, or marrying their goldfish, because that was the logical extension of the same-sex marriage argument. And this is actually something that is kind of ironic. There was a pamphlet produced by the Family Research Council in 2004 against same-sex marriage and making it part of federal law. And it was called The Slippery Slope of Same-Sex Marriage. It was genuinely called that. I've linked it here. You can go and check it out for yourself. And it has a bunch of arguments and a number of fallacies within the argumentation. But their argument was genuinely called The Slippery Slope, which I thought was kind of ironic. So for another example, you might say, if we don't go back to school soon, all young adults will be, all young adults will be depressed and uneducated. So obviously this doesn't necessarily follow from this. There are far more outcomes than just these things. So this is saying that if we don't go back to school, if we don't go back to school, then eventually we're going to be at this place where everybody will be uneducated and depressed. And that seems like it might be sort of common sense, right? But it's not necessarily the thing that happens. There are so many other possibilities and so many steps along the way. And so that's what you have to consider when looking at slippery slope, is that there are a million different possibilities out there, and this one thing doesn't follow necessarily from the other. And that's slippery slope.